Welcome to the third presentation in the series for the Ideal Weight Adjustment System at Ohana Chiropractic and Wellness Center. This is Dr. Whitaker, Dr. Don. I'll be your host for this one again. And so let's talk about hormones today. First of all, I want to review this list. I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, but this was from the first presentation. As you will recall, there's a lot of things that affect your weight. Calories are at the very top, and I'm tempted to even take that off the list because that's just not as big a deal as a lot of people think it is for weight loss from everything that I've studied. But it is still a factor, so we'll leave it in there. But anyway, you'll notice a lot of it has to do with hormones as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, the hormones. One of the main hormones when it comes to weight control is your thyroid, because the thyroid regulates your metabolism. In other words, how well does your body um, burn the energy? Does it just is it a low metabolism where it just tends to store things, not burn very hot, or you kind of think of it as a fire, is a roaring hot fire, or is it just smoldering? And so the thyroid determines that metabolism. So if your thyroid is weak, you'll have symptoms such as tiredness, depression, dry skin. You generally gain weight. Now, in some cases, I've seen where the thyroid is weak, but it also affects um, the appetite. And so if the appetite is really low, then your thyroid could be weak but not have the weight gain. But usually there is weight gain associated with it. One of the things with having a low thyroid is you tend to just be very low energy and more emotional. And so, of course, we know that part of weight issues is emotional. And so if you're feeling more depressed because your thyroid is weak, then you're going to tend to do more emotional eating. And so if you have a low metabolism and you're eating the wrong things at the wrong times because of feeling tired and depressed, then you can see where it can really cause some weight issues. So we're going to be going over this in detail, but the thyroid is controlled by the hypothalamus um, and the pituitary. The hypothalamus tells the pituitary what's going on with the levels of thyroid in the blood, and then the pituitary tells the thyroid how much thyroid hormone to produce. So we'll go over that in detail in just a moment. So your thyroid can be weak due to low thyroid releasing hormone or thyroid stimulating hormone. So in other words, it might be low just because it's not being told to produce a lot of thyroid hormone. Can be low due to trapped emotions, can be due to an iodine or selenium deficiency, especially iodine, or it can be a subluxation. In other words, if the neck is out of alignment where the nerves go to the thyroid, then that will affect it. And what I've seen over the years is that the lab tests that are done for thyroid doesn't always tell the whole story. Um, and as you'll see why in just a moment, that there are so many things that can cause either a low amount of thyroid hormone or an effective amount of lower thyroid hormone. Um, and then there is an inverse relationship with estrogen, and so that will often not show up in the lab work, but you can have a relative weakness of the thyroid if you have too much estrogen, because it's kind of a teeter-totter relationship there. So let's go through this, how this works. So the hypothalamus measures the amount of circulating thyroid hormones in your body, in your blood, and then it will produce thyroid releasing hormone. So the thyroid releasing hormone then goes to the pituitary, and so the pituitary gets the word that we need to increase our thyroid hormone level. So it produces thyroid stimulating hormone. So the thyroid stimulating hormone then goes to the thyroid, and the thyroid then produces T3, T4, T1, T2. These are different um, kinds of thyroid hormone, and also produces calcitonin, which helps with your calcium level. And then the thyroid hormones, they go to the rest of the body, and as we talked about, it regulates the metabolic rate, but it also affects heart and digestive functions, muscle control, brain development, and bone maintenance. Also, the liver has an important job to do. The T4 version of the thyroid hormone is actually a weaker form of it, and so the liver helps to convert the T4 to T3, which is the more active form. Um, Now, the liver is also busy breaking down excess estrogen, um, and then it's also taking toxins out of the blood. But one thing it can do is it can convert T4 to reverse T3, which we'll talk more about in a moment. So what can go wrong with this whole process? Well, we start at the beginning with the hypothalamus. Um, so, like I said, it's measuring, it's like a little lab that's measuring the amount of circulating thyroid hormone, but that doesn't tell us what's happening at the cellular level. It doesn't know what's happening with the cells. It only knows what's happening with the what amount of thyroxine is circulating in the blood. If there's inflammation, that can disrupt its function, so it's not going to function as well, not be able to tell, um, not be able to get an accurate reading on things. If there's any kind of energetic imbalance, um, so that's one of the things I look for with the lava rocks and so forth. Then there's the pituitary. So again, inflammation can disrupt its function. So we have to watch out for inflammatory kinds of foods like omega-6 fatty acids. There can be an energetic imbalance that can interfere with its function. Also, if there's a deficiency of protein or magnesium or zinc or B12, the pituitary is not going to function as well. And so if it can't function as well, then it can't tell the other hormones what to do. The pituitary is known as the master hormone. Now, of course, it's working under the direction of the hypothalamus, but the pituitary is what tells the other glands what to do, not only the thyroid, but like the ovaries and the testicles and the adrenals and so forth. Okay, then the thyroid itself. As I mentioned, there can be an iodine deficiency if the full names of the T3 and T4 hormones are triiodothyronine or tetraiodothyronine. So iodine is an important part of that. It's an amino acid linked to iodine, and so that's why it has to have iodine. A good source of iodine is in kelp. Um, so we especially get it from seaweed, things like that. Iodized salt can give it to you. When years ago, when they found that so many people were getting goiters, they started iodizing the salt. Um, so I don't know if they do it all the time now, but just shows that iodine is an important thing to have. Also needs protein, selenium, and other nutrients in order to function right. Again, inflammation can disrupt its function, and there can be energetic imbalances. Now, if you have a lot of free radicals, which can be created through toxins in the environment, diet sodas, stress, a lot of things can cause free radicals. And so that can interfere with the production of the T4, which is then, like I say, that's the main thing that's created, which is converted into T3. So if there's not enough antioxidants that you're eating, and like with the vitamins and so forth, you need those antioxidants to help counteract the free radicals. Alcohol and drug use can interfere with it. Mental and emotional challenges can interfere with that. Chronic physical stress, excessively low calorie intake. So if you have too low of calories, then the body says, okay, we got to slow down the metabolism. So you got to make sure you have enough calories. Liver or kidney disease can interfere with it. Toxic heavy metals, diabetes, aging. So lots of things can interfere with the functioning of the thyroid. So then the liver, if the liver is weak, if it's overburdened with too much estrogen or toxins that it has to deal with, then it can't keep up with that T4 to T3 conversion. And also, if you have high levels of cortisol, that can interfere with this conversion to T4 to T3. Again, T4 is one of the most abundant hormones that the thyroid produces, but it needs to be converted into T3 in order to be effective. And so if the liver gets overburdened, then it's not going to process estrogen like it should. So estrogen kind of goes through the system instead of being broken down like it should. Then you get high levels of estrogen, and that interferes with the thyroid. The adrenals play a part in this. Cortisol, which is your long-term stress hormone that's produced by the adrenals, that inhibits that T4 to T3 conversion. Progesterone, a lot of that is produced in the adrenal glands, and that's needed to balance out the estrogen. So then if the adrenals are worn out due to too much stress over too much time, then you don't get enough progesterone produced to balance out the estrogen. And then if the stress hormones are out of balance, then you get insomnia. And if you're too tired, then the body, what it does, the liver will produce more reverse T3. And what reverse T3 does is it binds to the cells where the thyroid hormone, where the regular T3 is supposed to bind. And so then the T3 can't get to the cells. And so then you become resistant to the thyroid hormones. So also the pancreas, if you have too much insulin, that interferes with the liver's ability to convert T4 to T3. And again, like I was talking about with the estrogen, estrogen increases thyroid binding globulin, which reduces the free T4, and so then there's not enough T4 to supply to create the T3, and that estrogen bogs down the liver. And so again, I've seen over the years that there's an inverse relationship between the amount of estrogen and the amount of thyroid. So as the estrogen goes up, the thyroid goes down. Then the cell membrane. So we've talked about this a little bit already. So these thyroid receptors can be tied up with reverse T3. Then also cytokines. When you have inflammation in your body, especially if there's general inflammation due to stress and food allergies, things like that, then these cytokines are produced, which get in the way of the thyroid receptors on the cell membranes. Certain proteins can get in the way. Estrogen also gets in the way. So all these things if they tie up the thyroid receptors, then your cells are not going to be able to pick up the thyroid hormone that it needs, the T3, in order to keep that metabolism up. And again, inflammation rears its ugly head. We need to avoid the inflammation. This can be from toxins, and then especially PCBs and dioxins, pesticides, heavy metals, BPA, that's in like cheap plastic, halogens like fluoride, chlorine, and bromine. So these are all things that can create a lot of inflammation in your body and interfere with those receptors on the cells. Also, these cells can have inflammation from bad fats, like especially vegetable fats, especially the trans fatty acids. They're the worst ones that we've talked about in the previous ones. And sugar and toxins, we talked about how sugar is an inflammatory substance. Okay, let's talk about some other ones. Estrogen and testosterone. As we said, the estrogen has to balance with progesterone. Estrogen, what it does is it increases the deposition of both fat and muscle tissue. People who are high in estrogen, they don't always show an improper balance of fat and muscle. So if you look at the balance, it could look correct even though they're overweight. because the estrogen will cause both fat and muscle tissue to be deposited. Um, as it is affected by the adrenals. Um, One of the things we have in our society is we have a problem with hyperestrogenation. Um, for many years, estrogen has been added um, to the diet for cows and chickens, um, because as it says with number two, it increases deposition of fat and muscle tissue. So if you have an animal, you want more fat and more muscle, so to get more weight, to get better profits on your animals, then that's why they would give them hormones. But then the hormones get into us and increase our disposition of fat and muscle. And so it throws off our hormonal balance. um, and again, we said there's an inverse relationship between the thyroid and the estrogen. So one of the things that can throw off the estrogen is birth control pills and hormone replacement therapy. So that can interfere with this balance. And so if you have high estrogen, obviously you're going to have a hard time losing the weight because of what it does to the thyroid, what it does to the deposition of fat and muscle. So we need to balance out that estrogen by sometimes we have to increase the progesterone. Um, Sometimes we have to do liver cleanses and things like that to help the liver do its job. Then the adrenal glands. Of course, these are the stress hormones. And as we start to get too much stress and we start to burn them out, then the stress becomes more difficult to handle because we don't have the ability to respond with the right hormones. Um, and then when we're feeling fatigued and stressed, we tend to exercise less. Our eating habits get worse. We do more emotional eating, more nervous eating. We feel less in control. And so these are the kind of things that stress do to us. And they affect the balance of thyroid hormones and estrogen. Cortisol is famous for causing weight around the middle of your body. And the more weight you have around the middle of your body, the more that you're at risk for cardiovascular disease. So here's some things we can do about it. You want to make sure there's no allergies to protein, iodine, and other nutrients, since these are important components of hormones. So we need to check for those allergies. Maintain proper spinal alignment so that the nervous system is working correctly. And then you may need to take some supplements. So you may need some extra iodine, usually in the form of kelp. Selenium. Selenium is not only helpful for the thyroid hormone, but it is also can take out mercury from the body. So it will to take hold of the mercury and pull it out of the body. Increase protein. That may be necessary in some cases. Vitamin C and vitamin B2, those are important to help with the hormonal balance. And other minerals are important for the hormones as well. Now, I was saying that, especially with the thyroid, you can't always tell the thyroid. Some of the labs are doing better as far as checking more things, as far as like the TSH, the TRH, the reverse T3, things like that, rather than just looking at the thyroxine. So it can be very helpful. So I would recommend getting some lab work. We have some tools in the office to help with this, but we just want to make sure that we don't take it as absolute gospel when we have lab work. Exercise is important because it helps if you can work past the effects of the cortisol and start getting past that, then what that'll do is help to have a proper outlet to help clear out some of those stress hormones, and then it sends signals to the hypothalamus that there's an increased need for metabolism, and so then your body will start to produce more thyroid hormones, as well as getting the circulation up in order to get all of the organs and glands working better. And as I mentioned, you may need to do a liver cleanse or a liver flush to help clear out some of the toxins there so the liver can do its job better. Avoid toxins. Um, Eat healthy food. Don't eat a lot of junk food. Progesterone cream can help to balance the estrogen. Definitely want to do the emotion code and work on stress management to help with the emotional side of things. And clearing trapped emotions will help the organs to function better. As I talk about in my emotion code class, this is actually what got me convinced that the emotion code is even valid, is I was able to help a girl get her thyroid functioning better. And it made a huge difference in her life. That's what made me realize that the emotion code is truly effective. And then use the body code to balance the organs and the glands. Find, because the body code looks for all kinds of different imbalances. That's where you can find these imbalances and use the body code to help balance those out. And as we talked about in the last class, you want to increase your saturated fats, reduce your bad fats, and also reduce your sugar and carbs. Um, as close as possible, you should eliminate sugar and reduce the carbs, especially the simple carbs like white sugar and white flour. So, believe you can and you will. There's a lot that goes into this. I don't believe, excuse me, I don't believe in just using willpower to do this. That's where we're using the EVOX and the emotion code. Um, if you have to use willpower, usually that can be only temporary. You have to feel good about what you're doing. It has to feel natural. And so if there's things that you're struggling with as far as putting these things into action, let's talk about it. Let's work through these things. So accept the joy. Accept the joy of having a better body. Love your body. Love it as it is now, and love it how it's going to be when you have a lower weight. So this is Dr. Don signing off for now, and if you have any questions, let me know.